guys, welcome to a new episode of Style Revival, where I pull inspiration from historical fashion and beauty trends and try to recreate a modern day wearable head to toe look. Today we are going to be reviving the 1940s. The more recent the period, the easier it is to create a look that is both authentic and relatively wearable. So I am going pretty authentic again today, as opposed to last time when I did a Victorian inspired look, which was heavily modernized of course. So I'm going to show you how to do 40s inspired hair, makeup and fashion today. So the 40s compared to the 30s and the 50s that came before and after were a pretty sober period when it came to clothing and makeup, and that is mostly because the 40s are of course heavily marked by the Second World War. There weren't as many materials available to make clothing and cosmetics, so women had to make do with what they had available. And on top of that, everyone had to contribute to the war effort, and that included women as well. So many women had to start working in jobs that weren't traditionally done by women. In order to be able to do those, fashion adapted as well into a little bit more of a practical, masculine type of clothing. What you see a lot in the 40s is a very accentuated hourglass shape that was achieved by shoulder pads and A-line skirts. And especially in the earlier 40s, to kind of avoid using too much fabric, skirts were a little bit shorter than they had been in the 30s, so they hit just below knee length and they didn't have any pleats or whatever, just to save fabric. So we're going to talk about fashion last in this video, but I'm going to start with the makeup. So makeup in the 40s was pretty natural, again, especially compared to the 30s and the 50s. Makeup was definitely visible, especially the red lipstick, but it wasn't as exaggerated as, for example, the heavy contouring that went on in the 50s. So I'm going to start with a layer of foundation. Now in the 40s, women would have worn foundation. They would have been very thick, and it would take a little bit of time to really blend them in. Luckily, we have more fluid foundations today, so I'm just going to apply mine that I have here, and I'm going to blend it out all over my face, and then apply a little bit of concealer underneath my eyes to cover up my dark circles and any imperfections that I may have. So when everything is blended in, I'm going to go over with a layer of powder, and I'm going to use this compact powder. And the 40s actually marked the rise of the compact powder, which was much more practical than the loose powders of the 30s. And women would have applied a very heavy layer. They would have pressed the powder into their face and then brushed off any excess, very similar to what we call baking nowadays. I'm not going to do that today personally. I'm just going to apply a thin layer of powder for a little bit more of a wearable look, in my opinion. Now moving on to the eyebrows. Eyebrows were pretty natural in the 40s. Again, especially compared to 30s and 50s. In the 30s, eyebrows were extremely plucked, and in the 50s, they were very much kind of reshaped. In the 40s, eyebrows were pretty natural, just colored in a little bit to make them a bit darker. So I'm going to use a eyebrow pencil and just fill in my eyebrows, make them a little bit longer than mine naturally are. And I am going to keep a bit of a modern shape in my eyebrows as well. Now for eyeshadow, eyeshadow was around in the 40s. Women would have worn an eyeshadow that kind of matched their eye color. I'm not going to wear eyeshadow today to keep the look a little bit more fresh and modern again. So I'm going to move on straight to mascara, and women in the 40s definitely wore mascara, even though it looked completely different from what we use nowadays. So I'm going to apply a little layer on my top and bottom lashes for a bit of a modern look. And then I'm moving straight onto the lips. So I am going to use a bright red matte lipstick, and I'm going to begin by using a lip liner first, and I'm going to slightly overdraw my lips, which is something that we do nowadays, but also was done in the 40s to create a bit of a fuller lip shape. That was really modern back then, so I'm going to slightly overdraw and then fill in my lips with this matte red shade. And that is the makeup look already done, so next I'm moving on to hair. Now, of course, the 40s have a very distinct kind of typical hairstyle, which included brushed out pin curls, those very typical kind of glamorous waves that were mostly brushed away from the face, as opposed to the 50s where it was much more kind of forward. So since I am going a bit more authentic today, I decided to go for a brush out, but I'm going to cheat my way into it. I'm not going to do an authentic wet set or use rollers like they would have in the 40s. I am just going to use a curling iron actually. But before I do that, I'm going to spray my hair with a little bit of heat protector and a setting spray to make sure my curls last. And then I'm going to take this 19mm curling iron, which I'm going to heat up, and I'm going to go in sections and curl all of my hair with this curling iron. And while curling, I'm going to make sure that I curl all the sections in the same direction, which means that I'm going to go away from my face on the left side and then towards my face on the right side, so that all the curls are facing in the same direction. And whenever I have finished a curl, I'm going to pinch it and pin it up to my head to let it cool down in this shape, and that is really going to help me, or it's going to help set the curls for when I brush them out so that they don't all just disappear. So So I'm going to do that all over my head. It's going to take a while. And when that is done and everything is set in these pins, I'm going to give it a few minutes to completely cool down before I come back and take out my pins, let down my curls. I completely forgot to mention something really important, and that is to make a deep side parting while curling. That is what's going to give it that really 40s look. And when I've taken down all of my curls, it's time to start brushing out. So I'm just taking a brush and I'm going to keep brushing my hair, brushing until it all forms this one big kind of mass of waves. And I'm going to kind of help mold it with my hands, shape it any way that I can. But mostly just let the curls do their thing on their own. And remember, when you're doing this, you will have to keep brushing for a very long time, for much longer than you think you will need to. So don't lose hope if it doesn't look good straight away. This takes a little bit of time. So when I'm happy with my brush out, I'm going to take one of these combs, which were actually used in the 40s as well. I'm going to insert that into my hair by sliding it in and then flipping it over and pushing it in the opposite direction. Then all you need is a little bit of hairspray and there is your hairstyle done as well. Now again, this is a pretty authentic hairstyle. If you want to make this a little bit more modern, you could use a slightly larger curling iron, brush it downwards more. So instead of flipping the hair up in the back like I have here, you could just kind of keep brushing it down, and that gives a bit more of that kind of modern Hollywoody look. So, you know, it all depends on how authentic you want to go. Alright, so moving on to the outfit. Now again, I think this is pretty recognizably 40s, but I still made a few little adjustments. So like I mentioned, a very important part of the 40s silhouette is the padded shoulders. So women wore blouses a lot. Blouses were a very popular item in the 40s, and they would have had padded shoulders as well as the jackets that were worn over them. The jackets generally would have matched the skirts to form a suit, and that was a very popular kind of go-to look in the 40s. Since it's very warm out today, I decided to just go for a blouse, and I'm wearing obviously a modern blouse with no shoulder padding because I really don't like shoulder pads. And I do think this makes it look a little bit more modern, and we're going authentic enough anyway, I feel like. And I have a little bit more cleavage going on than they would have had in the 40s. But I do think that this looks quite nice. And underneath I am wearing a skirt that hits just below the knee like it would have in the 40s. Mine is pleated. Pleats were worn in the later 40s when there was a little bit more fabric available again and women didn't have to be so strict about how much they used. So I accessorized my skirt with a waist belt, which is something that was definitely popular in the 40s. And I also accessorized with a silk scarf around my neck, which was a very popular look back then as well. So in my color theme, I decided to go slightly marine themed. This is a look that many Hollywood stars sported in photo shoots and the like, and I feel like it's something that can still be worn today. So for shoes, your best bet for 40s is a low, kind of chunkier heel. I didn't have anything similar to that, so I went with these shoes, which were kind of the closest approximation to a 40s shoe that I could find in my closet. So not authentic, but then again, this pulls the look into 2018 just that little bit more. So there is your 40s inspired, modern day, head to toe, wearable look completely done. So I really hope you enjoyed this style revival video, guys. If there are any historical periods that you would like me to, you know, pull a look out of, then please feel free to leave a request in the comments below and I will look through, pick one out for next time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for loads more historical beauty. If you would like to support me on Patreon, I will have a link in the description box below. Thank you very much, it's very appreciated. There will be another video here that you may also enjoy. You can go watch next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!